Welcome back to the 46th award show of 2017, celebrating the best in egomaniacal behavior. And the winner is Joe Compton.
Are you serious? Are you kidding me? Wow! I really won! I can't believe I won! I'm just so stunned by this. I mean, wow! Wow, I won! Oh, I did it! I did it! I won! You know, you get nominated so many times and you just think, okay, I'm just gonna enjoy the free food and get a couple drinks in me, get a little drunk, you know what I'm saying? You never expect this. I mean, I can't tell you. Here, take this. This thing's heavy. I can't tell you. I never expected to win, and I just got a couple people. Just got a couple people to thank. Just a couple. I'm really, really grateful to all of you. All the little people out there who I give hope to every day. Bless your little hearts. You know, you ask me for an autograph while I'm in the middle of eating, and I just smile and sign your little piece of paper or your little poster or your little cocktail napkin, and then you sell it on eBay and make twice as much as the pen twice as much as the cost of the pen that I used to write the autograph with. But you're the reason we do this. You're so special. You live vicariously through us, and I'm happy to be that conduit. I mean, I would start by saying that I'd like to thank all of the people who were nominated with me. I mean, such an incredible nominated field this year, but let's be honest. You're losers! You're all losers! Yeah, I'm talking to you, Brad. You're a loser. You're a loser. Call me. Oh. But, truly, I mean, to do what I do every day, well, not every day, just 3 weeks of the year. A little trade secret. But to maintain this beauty, this gorgeousness, so that you might all worship me. Yeah, true, I say some lines and I cry on cue because the director's got his thing going and he just gets me going and he thinks he's so good at getting me going, and the truth is I can cry anytime I want. I just make him feel happy because he's a schmuck and he thinks he's better than me, even though because I make 100 times more than him and work half as much. I mean, don't even get me started on the writer. I mean, could there ever be a more useless trade in our industry? Am I right? You know I'm right. You know I'm right. Oh, don't be naughty. Call me. But really, truly. Hey, I'm not done. Stop playing the music. Hey, band leader, I can have you fired. I can have you killed. Stop playing the music. Stop. Forget it. You know what? I'm going to win 4 or 5 more of these things tonight, so you're going to hear me thank a bunch of people who really don't deserve it because I'm great and they're not. So, screw it. All I can say is,
it's time to go indie now. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Go Indie Now. I'm your host, Joe Compton, and we have another great episode lined up for you. Recently I've been having conversations with people about age, and when is it a great time, what is a good age for a child to start developing their art skills and becoming an artist? Or the opposite conversation, which is it too late for me to start doing art? And the answer to both of those questions is never. It's never too late and it's never too early. You know, one of my favorite quotes about age is from Satchel Paige, where he basically says that age is a case of mind over matter. If you don't mind, it don't matter. And that's exactly how I feel. I mean, age is just a number. What we're really talking about is, do you have the gumption? Do you have the wherewithal to go out there and create? Are you ready to create? If you are, then go and do it. That's what this show is all about. It's to foster and highlight and support you in doing what you want to do in creating your art. And hopefully we bring some people along that inspire you, that engage you into believing that you can do that. And case in point with my first guest. My first guest, Ilana Maletz, is someone who was walking down one path, and as an artist, she was moving down the path of music. And she had designs on being part of the music business. And, you know, for whatever reason, it just zigzagged a different direction. And she maintained the opportunity to be a part of music by teaching. But she also had a desire to write. And that came much later in her life, when she was out there meditating and walking paths and kind of finding herself. A story spoke to her, and she needed to get it down, and she created her first novel from that story. And we talk a lot about her journey from music to writing the novel and what inspired her and how she maintained to do what she's been able to do. And Ilana, what was your journey to becoming a writer?
Well, I've always loved writing. I don't even know when I first began. I remember, like, back in high school, that's when I think it started to manifest as something that people were noticing. I remember my first, I've taken a lot of creative writing classes. I took one in high school for science fiction writing. And I remember the day that the teacher wanted to read somebody's story out loud to the class, and he read mine, and I was just very excited by that. So I've always written, but it's been more for me, more for my family. I've taught music for many years. I would use my writing skills to write shows for the kids and things like that. But it wasn't until my kids were grown and out of the house that I really started taking it a lot more seriously. In fact, this book began as a series of short stories. I was so moved by the energy and experience of being out in the desert every day. I'd go out with my dog, and I could walk for miles and not see anybody. And you could just, the trails, you could just tell that these are trails that had been walked before, and it just really captured my imagination. And so I would come home and I started writing what I thought was a series of short stories that weren't connected. And eventually one day I woke up and looked at them and said, well, no, this could be one family. This is all one story. And from there, a lot of times what I do is I'll just dive right in, and I learn about my character as my character kind of talks to me as I'm writing. And I do try, and I'm now working on book 2. So I actually have a much better outline, because there's definitely things that happen in book 1, and I'm trying to, make sure I have everything aligned and all of that. So, but that's a newer experience for me to actually work with an outline.
You've chosen to take this journey now, and what is the biggest benefit you've received from waiting to do it now?
I'm 58 now, so I'm getting to that age where I can maybe look back and look at my life and say, well, there's a little bit of gained wisdom here. And I think I don't look at setbacks like I might have when I was young. I can look at it all as this journey of learning.
You think your younger self would have come up with this story?
No. She couldn't have done exactly this character. In fact, one of my friends, after reading it, he looks at me and says, "You're Teresa, aren't you?" I said no at first, and then I thought about it, and I realized that I'm a Reiki practitioner, and so a lot of the metaphysical things that Teresa can do are really based on things that I've learned over the years. And I didn't really even get into that kind of practice until I was 40. So it's, the last couple of decades that I've really grown and learned that side of spirituality.
Did any of your music background help you in your writing process?
Absolutely, yes. As a singer, very much the same thing. I'm very in tune intuitively with my ear. I taught as a vocal coach for many, many years. So I would just, I would get into each of my students. I would feel their energy. I would hear and visualize in my mind, how they're producing that sound. And the whole basis of what I was trying to do for them was to free their voice. And a book is the same way. It's more cerebral, a little less physical, but I'm trying to free my voice, or I'm trying to free my characters' voices, and it feels very similar in that regard.
And when you started this journey, you attempted, I don't know if it was with this book, but get a book traditionally published. So what was that journey like for you? What did you learn from that experience?
What I learned from that experience wasn't that positive, or maybe it was. I learned that I really didn't know very much about the publishing industry, and I didn't really know how to go through and break down what felt like, those barriers. And there was very little information coming back at me, because a lot of times, people wouldn't necessarily even send you a rejection letter. You would have no idea. You would send your manuscript out and there would be no feedback coming back to you. So I did attempt, that one time, but my kids were young at the time. I was busy teaching music. When it seemed like I met a lot of resistance, it just kind of was like, all right, well, I got all these millions of other things to do right now. I'm going to focus on that. And it just stayed in the drawer. And most of my other writing subsequently stayed in the drawer. But this time when this book was done, it was different because indie publishing had become such a big thing, and so much of it, and Google was a big thing. I could just get on Google and I would say, Google, what is this and what is that? And then Google would tell me so I could understand the lingo everybody was using. so
Yay, Google got you into this world. I'm happy for that.
Well, Google and Amazon and the whole, in Sedona, we have a lot of people who do like to do indie publishing, and if I go to book fairs in the area, almost, more of them there are indie published than they are through a publishing house. Sure. So I was learning as I talked to them. And
your characters go on an amazing journey, and I mean, this book spans lifetimes. What do you appreciate most about the journey they took you on?
Oh, well, that's a really good question. The journey they took me on. You learn so much because you're researching so much. And to do this book, I was researching, turn of the century and then 1910 and 1920s, all the way to 1945. And each character, their experiences, they were all having to come to grips with this same dilemma, which is Teresa, her children, her grandchildren. Their power can harm or it can heal, and they have to make a decision, how to use it. And it gets even more hairy. Her son ends up, in World War II. He's a very gentle soul, and he ends up being a stretcher bearer in World War II, and ends up coming back with what he thinks is, what we would call PTSD. And turns out that they're probably more aligned with his visions, his power, and he's basically seeing echoes of what's to come in World War II. And then his children end up in the South Pacific in World War II. So that, you put people in situations like that, and they have, this both this responsibility and this power, and they have to grapple with that. And I had to really kind of walk that journey with them and figure out how would that feel. And that was probably the most interesting part of it.
So tell me, what does the word indie mean to you?
Well, it means something very different now than it did before. I didn't realize what this community, what it would feel like to be, kind of embraced by this community. But, everybody is, from the day you hit publish, that you start this journey that, unless you were really prepared, and I was not, you have no idea, what it really means to try to actually market a book. And there's somebody's just, they are always looking for ways to put out a hand and help you figure it out. And no question's too stupid. So it's a very welcoming place to be.
I'm curious, on the meditation front, how do you think it could benefit an author, and how do they get started with it to help them on their journey?
Okay. Well, I think meditation benefits an author because anytime you can quiet your mind enough, there's kind of layers as you quiet your mind. And there's always a layer where there's a lot of creativity that, you have to avoid the temptation of keeping a paper and notebook right beside you. And it usually stays with you. So you get it when you come back out of the meditation. But, it helps you know yourself. And the more you know yourself, the more you can create that knowing in your own characters. And in terms about how to get started, I'll tell you the thing that I'm really loving right now. I had a very strong meditation practice that I had cobbled together from lots of different things over the years. But this past year, my son Jeremy gave me this app called Headspace. It's a meditation app, and it's definitely for this generation. You can do it on your phone. You can do it for 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes. It can be done quickly. And each of these, he has like these different packets that you can get. So you go through the initial training packet, which just sort of trains you how to have a meditative state of mind. And then you can go in and do one on stress, or do one on creativity, or do one on balance, whatever kind of you feel like doing. And they usually last anywhere from 10 days to 30 days. He'll take you through the training. So what I've been doing is I've been doing that, and then I go and put in, kind of the things that I want to keep from my old meditation practice. So I usually still go for about 45 minutes to an hour with a meditation each day. But it's so much more focused having this Headspace app kind of training me in a way that I've never been officially trained before. And I think the other thing I'd add that I really love about it is this guy gives you permission to, he doesn't berate you if your mind starts to wander. He just says, you know what, your mind is going to do that. That's what minds do. But as soon as you notice it, just bring it back to the breath and bring it back to the focus that we were working on. And so it's a kind and gentle approach as well.
What is the greatest gift that has been given to you?
The greatest gift that's been given to me has probably been this journey I've been on with my husband. That's, just you get to a certain age and you realize, we just know each other so well, and we just accept who we are. He doesn't have to be perfect, and I don't have to be perfect to be worth loving. And that journey to get there was hard one. And the days that I can just sit back and take a look at my life, I think that's probably the thing that I'm most grateful to have had experienced.
My many thanks to Ilana for that great interview. What I'm finding in this episode with the guests that we have is something very interesting about character-driven stories spanning generations and journeys. of these characters finding themselves, and having this innate ability is something that Elena's book touches on so beautifully. In fact, it's about having a special power or having found yourself and what to do with that and how to hone that. And it's a very interesting read. I definitely recommend going and checking it out. All right, everybody. We'll be right back.
If I hear one more person talking about The Walking Dead, I'm going to shoot someone. I'm going to talk about my favourite zombie film of all time, Zombie Flesh Eaters. It came out around 1980 by Italian director Lucio Fulci, and it was written as a sequel to Dawn of the Dead. And it's about a reporter and a girl who want to look for her father, so they go to the Caribbean, and there's all weird stuff happening to do with zombie stuff. Anyway, it's a typical plot that a lot of these films in these sort of video nasties film around the 1980s, they all have this kind of like zombie sort of Holocaust, things like that. So anyway, what it is a fantastic zombie film, easily my favourite of all time. And the effects are brilliant. Now, the reason I want to talk about this is because of Walking Dead, and that I'm just so sick of people going on about it. Sorry, but it's just not that good. Although the effects in The Walking Dead are fantastic. Anyway, go back to Zombie Flesh Eaters. This is what we're talking about. I'm a total zombie snob. I don't like anything that came out post Brain Dead, and Brain Dead really is sort of its own kind of thing, but it is like amazing. But yeah, you've got to go back to the 1980s. The best zombie films is Day of the Dead, Dawn of the Dead, and Night of the Living Dead. But Zombie Flesh Eaters, although it may not be the best, is certainly my favourite. The music in that film is just so fantastic, and there's no other zombie film that has a shark attack scene, which is absolutely hypnotically such a brilliant scene. It alone, the film deserves 5 stars just on that one scene alone. Then there's the notorious eye-piercing scene, where a zombie grabs the head of the woman and just slowly drags her towards this wooden spike, piercing her eyeball. Fantastic. But the zombies themselves, there's no running zombies, none of that rubbish. It's just the shuffling, decrepit, decomposing zombies that really is just the hallmark of what you want from a zombie film. It was released as Zombie 2 in America, and in the UK it's called Zombie Flesh Eaters. And as I say, the zombie effects is the main great thing about it, and the music. But the way it's shot and the editing, yeah, there's some dodgy dubbing. It's an Italian zombie film, so what? That's all part of the charm. So yeah, it's a film that if you are interested in zombie films and want something better than The Walking Dead, but go back there and check out Zombie Flesh Eaters, Zombie 2 as it was released in America, and you won't be disappointed. Thanks for listening.
My next guest is stomping his way through Nashville and taking America by storm with his fist-pumping anthems and his twangy, very unique and interesting take on country western music. Oh, and did I mention he's from Sweden? That's right, my next guest is Hicks. He's a Swedish country music artist who started most of his, who's been songwriting most of his life. He has collaborated with some of the world's greatest musicians, including the likes of Jamie Jameson, who, if you don't know who Jamie Jameson is, go check it out, because you'll instantly regret not remembering that name, because he was a founding member of the band Survivor that created one of the greatest anthems of my childhood. And if you're a big Rocky fan, then you definitely know who Survivor is. But I digress. This is all about Swedish country music artist Hicks and his rise in our vast ability to create something unique and interesting in the country western genre. You come a long way to fulfill a dream. So tell us about where you come from and how you got to where you are now.
Oh, well, I am from Sweden. I grew up in the southern part of Sweden in a small town called Helsingborg. But I moved some 15, 16 years ago to the capital of Sweden, Stockholm. And just because I wanted to be near the music industry in Sweden. Because I used to be a writer. I've been writing for a lot of different artists around the world. And all the labels, all the music publishing companies are in Stockholm. That's why I moved.
What are some of the resources in Sweden that have helped you develop your musical career? What has been good about being there?
What helps me living here and record here is that I sound a little different if you compare me to the typical Nashville country artist. And I don't mean that what they are doing bad. I love that sound, but I have a little different sound. I record some of the stuff in Nashville, some I record in Austin, but the lion's share of the track is recorded here in Stockholm, and it's produced and mixed here. So because I want a little different sound. I want it to be country, but I want it to be different. And so I think that's the best part of being from Sweden. And I write about maybe not the typical country topics. I don't write so much about trucks and painted on jeans and plated shirt and your hat and your boots, and because everybody else is doing that. So I try to write about other stuff.
You know, country is also about endless love and acquaintancing, and I mean, it is about the culture, but there's some deeper, meaningful country out there.
Oh yeah, I mean, I love country music. I love the new contemporary country as well as the old stuff. I just mean that they do it so well in Nashville, and so why should I do that? I would just be a copycat, so I have to do it my way.
Right. Yeah, it's a good way to stand out, right?
Oh, yeah.
Country. Why did you gravitate toward that?
Why not? Now, but I grew up listening to country. My mom, my grandpa, they are big country music fans, and they played all the old timers, Johnny Cash, Jim Reeves, Hank. So I grew up listening to that. And when you're a kid, you don't think about, oh, that's country, that's rock, that's pop. When you're a kid, it's just music. And to me, that was just good music. I didn't understand what they were singing about. But I remember listening to Johnny Cash when he sang San Quentin, I hate every inch of you. And I didn't understand it, but I understood from the crowd's reaction that, wow, that was something important. And then I decided I need to learn English. So I started learning English so I would understand what those guys were singing about.
What do you think Americans take most for granted about the country music scene?
They take for granted that it should sound a certain way. And when something new and a bit different comes along, they don't take it to heart immediately because it's different. And much of today's country music have fallen into that trap that it's formulated. Everything sounds the same. They look the same. When you listen to radio, you can't tell one artist from the other because it's not bad, but it's kind of samey. Same thing with the boy bands in the 90s. They were looking the same, singing the same, had the same writers, the same producers. And labels think that just because one works, everybody's got to look that way and everybody's going to sound that way because we got to make a lot of money. But I think they're going to make a lot more money if they were looking for something different.
What was your happiest surprise about coming here and playing music?
Well, that everybody was listening. I mean, I sing in English, so it's your language, but playing over here in Europe, people don't listen that much to the lyrics. It's not important to listen to the lyrics. The lyrics are just there so you can sing along in the chorus and shout the hook line or whatever, but they don't pay attention to the story in the lyrics. So that was really surprising for me, but playing a song and there's a line I have, and if you agree with me, give me a freaking big hell yeah, and everybody stood up and hell yeah, whoa, these guys are listening, and they listen to you what you're saying in between songs, and because over here sometimes I read the menu just for fun from the restaurant because I know nobody's listening, so you read the menu and then you just say, and here now we're going to play. Good.
What do you like most about being indie? I would imagine you've had opportunities to be major label signed and part of the machine. So why did you choose indie? What do you like most about it?
I had an offer a few years ago from one of the major labels, and they were willing to put in $1 million Swedish crowns. That's around $175,000. Just for me to sign with them. And I asked them, what's the catch? No. And then the more we talked, I found out that, well, they wanted to change me and they wanted to do me more like everybody else. And I should work with those writers and I should work with those producers and it should sound like that. And just like, no, that's not me. I mean, I do what I do because I love it. And if I have 2 fans, then I have 2 fans who really love me. And that's worth more than to have hundreds of thousands of fans that just follow you because you sound like everybody else. Yeah. So that's important to me. If I'm going to sign with somebody, they have to be ready to sign me, not some copycat, or because that's not who I am.
You've collaborated with some big names in the music industry. What do you like about doing collaborations?
I love it. I really love it because I have my way of writing. When I write a song by myself, I write the way I do. But when I collaborate with somebody, the mix of his idea or her idea with mine ideas always takes the song somewhere completely different than if I wrote it on my own. And there's always that element of surprise when you write with somebody. They come up with something just like, whoa, I wouldn't think of that. That's so cool. And I love to work with people who are outside the country genre. Pop writer or pop artist or rapper or rocker or whatever, just to bring a little different flavor to the table. And it's that's really cool because in those meetings, cool things usually happen. Me and my colleague Eric Martinson, we wrote Jimmy Jamison's last album before he passed away, and damn shame. I mean, Jimmy was one of the best rock singers in the world. The way he interprets a song, the emotion he puts into it, and just the way he phrases every line, it's just like, wow. I'm so proud of that album in so many ways, because when we were done, we mixed it and it was done, and we sent the first copy to him, and he called us back as the guys. I'm sitting here in my living room crying because this is the best album I've ever done.
Wow.
And I was a writer, full-time writer, before I went back to being an artist. And some artists you work with have a huge ego, and you never know how the song's going to turn out. Some great, and some are just like, whoa.
Yeah.
Well, okay. Well, I'm not going to play that song for anybody. but with Jimmy's, what Jimmy did with those songs, I am so proud.
That being said, I mean, what is your dream collaboration? Who are you waiting for a phone call from right now?
Well, I would love to work with Brooks and Dunn. I know they parted ways, but I mean, come on, guys, get back together and call me and let's write some great songs. And I would love to tour. I would love to open for those guys.
What's the secret to a good song?
To me, if it's very singable, that second time you hear the chorus, you can almost sing along. And I don't mean that it should be predictable, but you should have a strong lyric hook and a strong melody hook.
What's the best advice you can give someone who is overseas about starting in music?
Stay true to who you are. And don't listen to the naysayers, the haters. Keep walking, keep walking. It's your life. Nobody else has the right to decide what you want to do or not want to do or how you should do it. And be honest to yourself. Be honest to who you are. Be honest in your writing, and learn. Because people will say no to you when you start out chasing a dream, because it's easier to say no than yes. If they say yes, it means they have to go to work. And if they're going to work, they need to make a lot of money, and you don't make money on a new artist. But stay at it, because if you believe in yourself and you evolve as an artist or a writer or whatever, you will make it.
Give me a hell yeah for Hicks, man. That was awesome. I love me some Hicks. He's great. And he is very unique and very different and such a personality. It was really cool to talk to him, and all the way from Sweden. That's a great thing about my gig is I get to talk to all kinds of people all over the world. I've been all over the world lately, and during this time doing this show, and it's been awesome. Hopefully someday I will actually physically be in these locations and doing my show from location. That would be something amazing, no doubt. Anyway, we'll be right back.
Unus, which is the planet where the Alliance meets. Arkrillians over in Arkrill. Got the Centaurians who live over in Alpha Centauri. Those are the shape-changing horses. Out of the underworld called Heros.
War is ugly. It doesn't just affect those fighting in it. And it doesn't just affect those who are left with its aftermath. It's soldiers, nurses, refugees. These are their stories.
Hello everyone, my name is Okubo. Welcome to GoIndieNow Okubo book reviews. A couple of great things. First, the paperback for Love. If you like paperbacks, and I have the paperback for Kaoru in Love's Shadow. It came in. It's a great little paperback. And my fantasy book or novella. This is number 2 in the trilogy, Brotherhood. Check them out. And check out my website, ginokubo.com. You can find stuff like my editing service, and you can find links to my books. That's JINOKUBO.com. Today's book, I'm disappointed. I expected more, especially because this book on the cover has Reader's Favorite Book Award winner and 5-star review, Reader's Favorite Award winner. And when you look at it, the book on Amazon, it has 118 reviews, 79% are 5-star reviews, and then you get to read it, making it wow. Good points. Good points is that it's very well written. The grammar's spot on for the book, in my opinion, and the sentence structure is great, but it is pedantic, plotting. It's predictable. Those are the kindest words I can say about it. But if I had to separate fiction into 2 categories, like we have with fantasy, where you have high fantasy and low fantasy, this would be a high fiction book because it's just wow. In my honest opinion, I feel that the author of this book spent a lot of time trying to express their political views, and a lot more time watching and rewatching and watching again and rewatching again Dead Zone with Martin Sheen, the news with all this fear mongering that's going around, watching news headlines, TV political movements, and you get this story that's so predictable that it could have just fallen out of any news article. That's how imaginative the news have gotten, and I'm really sad that I read this book. I wish it would have been better. I wish I could have recommend you to read this book. I can recommend you to read this book if you like books that are long and you'll know what's happening by the time you get to the middle of the book. If you're ahead of the game, you'll know what's happening by the time you get to chapter 4 or 5, where the author's going with the story. So, again, I'm not sure if I'm going to review this on Amazon. I really want to, but it's going to be a 2-star review. From my point of view, I really do not recommend you to get this book. It's a trilogy series. If you like political books, predictable political books, with the same, attempt at trying to push one singular message, then I would say you can go ahead and pick up this book. But for me, I'm stopping at book 1. Right, this is Gino Kubo at GoIndieNow, and if you want to check it out, there it is. Fire War by T.T. Michaels. Yeah, I really am disappointed with this book. You guys have a good one.
My next guest is Mara Lesemann. Now, Mara is a screenwriter and producer. She's done a couple of her own feature films and a few shorts. Now, Mara is someone who decided to go the educational route when it came to learning the craft and honing her skills and getting herself ready to go out there into the world and do screenwriting basically for a living. And that's what she does now. She's more of someone who polishes screenplays that need some help or writes some screenplays on spec, but she is someone who really embraced the role of indie filmmaker and kind of just kept the collaboration aspect of it alive. And she's very savvy and smart. And we often hear from people, I do anyway, that the way to approach this business is to dive right in and basically go to the school of hard knocks. But you chose to take the educational route and go through the new school and learn screenwriting as a craft through education. Where do you think that benefits you, as opposed to just having guerrilla style, hard knocking?
Well,
Oh,
yeah, I did also at the same time jump in and start doing some short movies. So I did my very first one was called Albert and Mandy, and it was actually a film adaptation, movie adaptation of a play that I had done. And I did Foreclosed and Jumpstart. So I did a whole bunch of shorts on my own, even as I was studying screenwriting. But the reason I think it's worth doing at least some study is because screenwriting is one of the most kind of insanely rule-bound things that you're ever going to run into. There are some of it has a lot of logic and human thought behind it, in the sense that people really are used to the three-act structure going back. If you go back to the Greeks and Romans and ancient storytelling, there's a way that people tell stories. They kind of set it up in the beginning, and then they give you the middle part, and then they wrap it up at the end. So some of that is just human nature. Some of it is rules, kind of for the sake of rules, in terms of the way you write slug lines and the way you write John says XYZ rather than John said XYZ. It's just the way people write screenplays. And I think that there's value in learning that, because it's fine if you want to always make your own stuff. But if you want to get out there in the world and sell your screenplays and get hired to write other people's screenplays, which is a lot of what I'm doing these days, you kind of have to learn the way the rules are there. And my mom is an artist, and she studied at the Art Students League in Manhattan, actually starting when she was in her 50s, and she's a fabulous painter. But one of the things she always says is that you have to know the rules before you can break them. And I think there's a lot of truth to that. A lot of the abstract artists all learned how to paint the human figure before they broke it up into pieces and painted it abstractly. And I think that is very true about screenwriting as well, that you can break all of the rules in the world, but you're going to do it a lot better if you learn what they are and how they work before you go out and change things.
So Mara, when did the love of movies begin for you? And when did you know you wanted to start writing them?
I have always loved movies, going back to when I was a kid. And I think I got that a lot from my mom, who always says that movies are the first love of her life. In terms of writing, I actually started out writing for theater. My husband, Carlo Fiorletta, who's the lead in my new feature, Detours, so the male lead, was an actor long before I was a writer. And when we started dating, I went with him to a few black box theaters in New York where friends of his and colleagues were acting. And what I said to him after that was, I think the actors are terrific, and often the directing is terrific, but the writing is lousy. And he said, well, if you think that you can do better, then do it. And I think he's lived to regret that on many occasions, because I said, yeah, I think I can. And I started out writing for theater. And actually, the first thing that I ever had that went live, he directed and went up at a group called Love Creek in New York. And it was an amazing experience because it was a romantic comedy called Bermuda Triangle, 3 people in it. Carlo directed it and was in it. And it was the first thing that they put up after 9/11, which was an amazing experience, because here was this theater full of New Yorkers who were so eager to laugh. And I mean that in the nicest way possible, because we'd all been through this terrible thing. But at a certain point as humans, you have to smile and you have to laugh. And I was able to make them do that. And that was an intoxicating experience. So I went on to do more theater writing, took some classes, and then I realized that nobody makes money in theater. And I mean nobody, not even Neil Simon. The only people who make money are the people who own the physical theaters. So I decided I was going to learn screenwriting, and I started studying that at the New School in Manhattan, which is wonderful. It's one of my really my favorite school. I've studied in a number of different places, and that's my favorite. So I took their entire range of screenwriting classes, and I started doing shorts, and I moved from there into features.
You mentioned that you started with short films.
Yes.
How important do you think that is to, or was to, your personal development? And do you think as an artist that is an important way, first step to start?
I think it's extremely important. There's a saying that the second act is where movies go to die, and which I think, even blockbusters, you watch how many of them do you say, okay, come on, get to the point. So I think to try to learn to tell a story well in a smaller amount of time is extremely important. I'm very obsessive about dialogue also, and I think short movies are a great way of perfecting your ability to write dialogue and to learn to listen to your actors, hear them when they say the lines. And I'm a big believer also in table reads, and even before you're ready to produce the movie, because as writers I find that things sound differently in our head than they do in real life, and sometimes you'll just want to bury my head in my hands and say, how did I write that? But if you can hear a real person say that, and they don't have to be a great actor, you'll realize what's working and what's not.
What is your writing process? Are you someone who sits down, writes the first draft out, and then plans plots and plans around it? Are you someone who plots and plans at the beginning? How do you approach writing a screenplay?
I think about it a lot before I sit down to write it. I find that I tend to do a lot of the plot development in the car when I'm driving. If I'm by myself. And what I'll do is I'll take an idea and I'll start running it through to its logical conclusion. And then I hit a roadblock where it's not working, and then I back it up and I try another direction. It's like if you picture yourself as a driver and you get to the dead end and you turn around and you go back and you try a different road, that's very much what my story development process is like. And then after I kind of have the whole thing plotted out, then I sit down and write the first draft. One of the hardest things for me is that I try to force myself to go through and write the entire first draft before I start rewriting. Because if I keep going back and trying to make each scene good, I'll never get past page 10, because everything, at least for me, needs a tremendous amount of rewriting. And I can get totally hung up on getting, page 1 perfect. So I try to make myself just go straight through to the end of the draft, and then I can go back and do an infinite number of rewrites.
What drew you to the subject matters and the themes that you write about?
I try to write about things that I think will resonate with people around the country, around the world, not just with my own family and friends, but at the same time make the people specific. I don't think you can write a character who represents all women or all men or all alcoholics or all people who suffer from bipolar disorder or anything like that. You can write one person who has these flaws and these characteristics, but I try to make them relatable on a broad basis.
What does it mean to you to be indie, and how would you describe being indie?
I think indie, leaving budget aside, means taking on the stories and the topics that Hollywood might not otherwise do. And with Detours, I also want to look at the market that doesn't get as much attention in Hollywood as I think it should. And we all know that Hollywood movies tend to focus on, young males ages, let's say 15 to 22 or something like that. And one of the biggest movie watching populations is people over 50.
Yeah.
I liked the idea of doing a story which had at least, one main character who was over 50. And even, women who are over 30. That's not, that's not mainstream Hollywood. So Detours is a story about, a guy who's 60 something and his daughter who's 30 something. And much of the story focuses around them.
I gather you took on producing, especially with the feature films, to maintain the integrity of the work that you put in as a screenwriter. Am I right about that?
Absolutely. And I'm sure you know as well as I do that it is incredibly difficult to get a movie produced if you don't have a track record. It's the infinite loop. Everybody wants to know what you've done before they're willing to get involved, and you can't do it until you've done it. That's certainly true in other places also.
Yeah.
So, it got to the point where I felt like I could keep banging on doors for the rest of my life, or I could go out and do it. One of the things with Surviving Family, and I don't want to give away endings to people, is that because I want them to watch it. But so it's about dysfunctional family, and the ending is one that people have very split reactions to. People either say it had to end that way, or they say that was terrible. How could you do that? And the director and I talked for a long time about it. It's directed by a wonderful woman named Laura Tees, who had directed several of my shorts as well. And she and I had some extensive conversations about it. And there's a final scene that some people wanted us to get rid of. And we both felt that it preserved what we felt was the story that we wanted to tell. And part of that is that life isn't perfect. It's not everybody dies at the end or anything like that, but you got to just pick yourself up and keep trying. Life, we don't get happily ever after. None of us do. And I don't want to tell a happily ever after story. That's not me. It's not what I want to do. I don't want to tell everybody dies at the end either. So I kind of go for the middle. So, but that is a big part of when you talk about artistic integrity and telling the story that I wanted to tell. Yeah, absolutely. You can't do that if it's somebody else's movie. And that's one of the things that a lot of writers and directors have issues with. Everybody wants to do it exactly their way. And if you're the producer, you can. And if you're not, you can't. And you have to just deal with that.
Now, being a producer, though, and knowing that you're going to produce this, when you're writing it, does that help you or does that hinder you? Does that get in your way sometimes, you're trying to turn off that producer voice when you're writing?
I think it's fine to turn it off on a first draft, but once you decide you want to make the movie, you have to be practical about it. Yeah. You just have to. And one of the things that happened is the things that I learned from producing Surviving Family definitely influenced my writing of Detours. And I'll give you a very specific example. Surviving Family, there's multi-generational families, and there's a lot of people who appear in a lot of different scenes. And so person X maybe was in 12 scenes, and those 12 scenes are in 4 different locations. That was a logistical nightmare. That was just, taking so many different people and moving into so many different places to shoot scenes was a real challenge. So what happened was when I sat down to write Detours, and I knew basically the story that I wanted to write.
Help you as well to learn production and you a leg up when you started producing?
Oh, absolutely. Because the thing is, there's so much, as I'm sure you know, there's so much that goes into making a movie, and so many things that you don't think about till you actually get in there. One of the things that I always joke about is you got to feed your people. You may, a lot of the times, particularly in a short, you may not be able to pay anybody anything. Everybody's doing it for the experience, but feed them. There's an old saying that an army runs on its stomach, and so do actors, and so do DPs, and so do directors. And if you can keep people fed, you can get a lot further, and you don't realize what's involved even with that until you actually do it, and then to realize how many lights and how many microphones and all the things that are involved. I did a short movie called Foreclosed, which was a kind of a horror thrillerish thing about a guy whose wife had died and he lost his house because of the medical bills. And I can still picture one of my actresses running around the neighborhood looking for, because there was a sign that I wanted to use that basically said that a house was being paid for taxes, was being taken for taxes. And she had seen one, on a tree 6 blocks away. And she ran in her heels down the street, and we borrowed it from somebody else, blacked out the name, used it for the shot, and then she ran back and hung it back where it was supposed to be. But it's like those little things. You don't always want. It was wonderful that she was willing to do this, but it's one of those things that you learn as a producer to really make this thorough list of everything that you need, because I put it in the script, but I didn't have it.
Mm-hmm.
So that to me, it's a lot easier to improvise when you're doing a short than it is when you're doing a feature, because you lose half an hour even on a feature. You don't make your day.
Well, I got a phone call from his lawyer.
And?
He says he won't give you the recipe unless you give him some of the ashes.
But what is it you're going to do?
That's why you need a good divorce attorney.
For cookies?
Dad, you need to scatter the ashes.
I will.
When's the last time you went out other than to the supermarket? Come with me.
I can't.
Drive to Florida with me. We can scatter the ashes on a beach.
You need to get laid.
Oh, Miss Jennifer, I do declare.
Did you hear me? I said I'm sorry.
You're bugging me about dating, and I do. Now you have a fit. You must think me a provincial, sir.
You left your mother in the car overnight?
No.
NYC. What am I missing?
Life, love, the usual.
Jackson Heights is where I hail from, born and raised. I'm so proud of my roots, the ladies call my name Rajiv. And what?
I really wanted to actually make something. I wanted to actually make a movie. And again, one of the other things that's different between movies and theater is that my movies will be here long after I'm gone.
Yeah.
And I like that idea. I like the idea that, 20 years from now, 30 years from now, somebody will still be able to watch my stuff and like it or not like it. That's absolutely their matter of personal taste. But I'm not going to be here forever, and I want to leave something that is here.
My many thanks to Mara for that awesome interview. As I was alluding to at the end of Ilana's interview about characters, Mara's movies have these rich, engrossing, deep, thought-provoking characters that really have immense flaws, but have yet such subtlety and heart, and they really resonate with human nature. We either rise above, or we stay put, or we don't challenge ourselves, or we sink down. But somehow, some way, life has a way of dealing you into a hand that maybe you didn't want to play in. And to use a card playing analogy, or a game analogy, I guess you could say. But, finally tonight, we did this episode about age and, coming to grips with what is the right time to be an artist. And the truth be told, it really, whether you're 10 years old, 23, 35, 50, 60, 80, it really depends on how much you're willing to put into what you're doing. I'm doing a panel on the Writer's Edge podcast about managing time and how do you live your life and yet find time to be a writer or be a, whatever you want to be, an artist of some sort. you know, and it really comes down to it, to me, that there is a moment in time when you decide, you know what, I'm going to follow my passion. And that doesn't necessarily mean that you abandon everything else and just sink deeply into the passion. You can do whatever you want and how much of it you want to give. You know, you could call it a hobby, you could call it, you know, you could call it work, you could call it your job, but putting a label on it really doesn't do it justice. What does it justice is your commitment to the idea that you want to be an artist and you're willing to put yourself out there. That in itself is an amazing, amazing thing. And it can't be taken lightly, no matter what age you're at, no matter what skill level you're at, what experience level you're at. You know, we do art and we learn and we evolve just like everything else. Art has an evolution. And you as an artist has an evolution. And that's the bottom line, you know. We just want to help one another get seen and get out there and enjoy it. And, you know, it just goes back to everything that we believe, right? That it's always time to go indie now. All right, everybody. We'll see you next time.
In this round, our panelists help the world save a few dolls. First up is China. Yeah! if you are old enough to commit suicide, you are old enough to face the punishment. The mayor of London, Boris Johnson, tried to bring this the Labour leader, Ed Miliband, took to the streets too, in Peckham. He welcomed police reinforcement.
I think it's right that substantially more police officers are being placed on the street, because I think we all know that the situation on the street needs to be got under control.
Tonight, police are bracing for the possibility of more. The uneasy capital is quiet for now.
Hey, thanks a lot for watching our latest episode of our show. I hope you're enjoying what you're watching. And if you are, it would be really great if you could please like the video, share it, comment. It really helps us out. It gets us seen. It gets all these indie artists seen. And it's really an important thing for the YouTube community. So please, please, definitely like, share, comment the video that you just watched and any video that we produce. We always welcome feedback, and we always welcome the community to share what we're doing. It's really awesome, and that you guys are a part of this and helping us out. Also, please, if you see something you like or you think that's interesting, or you listen to an interview and you want to learn more about that person, go to our website. Our website link is going to be right here on this video. So check it out and go and patronize these great indie artists. Go buy their stuff. We have all the links to everything you could buy from them on our website. You can also go to their website and sign up for their newsletters, sign up for their blogs, and help get the word out about all of them. All right, everybody. Thank you so much.